without reaction for the part of the Western world, of Europe, the Western world, in my view, is a very serious mistake.
Well, we already see that some of the old familiar divisions across the Atlantic between the United States and Europe are re-emerging in this crisis that we see in the Middle East. The French government, for example, led by Jacques Chirac, is already pressing at the UN for an immediate Security Council call for a ceasefire. The Americans do not want to see that.
Always there is a people that work with very, very enthusiasm to increase the gap of the difference between America and European Union. Personally,
those gaps are real. They're not imaginary.
No.
There are fundamental divisions in approach between European countries and the United States.
Some people in Europe, not Europe, some people in Europe. Because some people in Europe, for example, President Chirac, wants to create a counterweight in Europe against the United States. I do not agree. This is the major expression of the situation for the Iraqi crisis. And then some people in Europe trying to build a counterweight to the United States. I do not believe in this policy. I defend the idea that an Atlantic Europe, a more strong relations between America and Europe. And for me, this is two ways, essentially. One way is the transforming NATO, and to enlarge NATO or Israel or Japan or Australia, for example. Another way is to create an economic Atlantic area between Europe and America. Because I think that the future, our future, is a more strong relations with the United States.
But Mr. Aznar, many people listening to this interview may be asking themselves, have you learned nothing from your own personal experience? Because you lost power. Your party lost power in Spain 2 years ago, precisely because the Spanish people fundamentally disagreed with your support for George Bush and the Iraq War.
No, this isn't true. This is a circumstance in the March 11 attacks in Madrid that create a special circumstance in my country, and that the opposition, the current government, take advantage in this moment to declare guilty of this attack the government, not guilty the terrorist. It's the first time in history that it occurred. No?
Well,
it's not for sure.
We must talk more about this because it's very important to get this clear. Are you, first of all, arguing with my premise that a clear majority of the Spanish people opposed your support for the Gulf War and your deployment of Spanish troops inside Iraq after the war?
No, I think the major part of the Spanish people is against. But I think my responsibility is to assure for the future the security, the freedom, the democracy in my country, and to establish a mechanism of solidarity with our main allies. I think the decision to overthrow the regime of Saddam Hussein was a right decision.
But the March 11th bombs catalyzed Spanish people's feelings about what you did supporting Bush and supporting the war.
Yes,
and they went to the polls and they voted against it.
No, it's not true.
Well, the evidence is there. The evidence is there in what happened between March 11th and March 14th, the public discussions in your country, and then the evidence is in the votes that will count.
The question is not the Iraqi crisis or the Iraqi intervention. The question is the attacks of March 11th. It's non-existent relation between Iraqi intervention and the attacks on March 11th. This is untrue.
No connection in your mind?
No connection, absolutely, no connection.
So you...
Even more, you know in this moment some perpetrators of the attacks, but you don't know who imagined the attack, who is the leader of the attack, who is the idea of the attack, who established and support the means for the attacks, who defined the logistic of the attack, Who established the strategy of the attack? Nothing.
Do you think what you're suggesting there is doubt about whether it was committed by Islamist militant groups?
I think that one part of the perpetrators are Islamists. But I think that not only is an Islamist attack.
You say this because you are not prepared to apologize for your conduct in those days between March 11th and March 14th, when you repeatedly pointed the finger of blame at the Basque separatist movement, ETA, when all of the evidence, as we now know, pointed towards Islamist terrorists.
Precisely the evidence in the last month, in these days, is that the most possible situation is a strong participation of the ETA or terrorist group in this attack, precisely.
You and your party suffered a great defeat. And let me continue. Prime Minister Zapatero told the Parliamentary Commission of Inquiry, and I quote, "We now know objectively there was not a single piece of data pointing to ETA's involvement. It was a deceit," he means you're pointing to ETA, was a deceit, a massive deceit on the Spanish people.
Well, this is the words of the current Prime Minister in Spain. No? I think I understand that it's better, for example, surrender and have terrorists that fighting terrorism. No? This is one of the policy of the current Prime Minister of Spain, Mr. Zapatero. No? And he negotiated in this moment with the terrorists.
You know as well as I do.
PTA,
no? And said his number one priority
but
was
the truth is that one of the first leaders, political leaders, that blame to ETA to be responsible of the attack of March 11 was Mr. Zapatero. The most important, at the 9 o'clock of this morning. But the question is, the objective of this terrorist was to provoke a situation to change government. This is the first question. The elections hold 14 March. If the election were 7 March, the attacks will be always 3 days before. But the objective is to change government.
But the pointed issue is how you handle the situation between the 11th and the 14th. People have a right to judge you and your government